All right, all right, all right. Well, welcome to the Mo Mindful Show. I am your host, Dr. Mo, on this beautiful Wellness Wednesday. And we have a lovely guest today that is going to be talking about health disparities and just her role as a dentist here in the Northeast corridor of the United States. And we hope that she's going to share some information that will be revealing to you and encourage you to take better care of your health. We're also going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to the healthcare industry and just in general. So, following her graduation from Spelman University, Dr. Spaulding took some time between her studies to nurture another passion, which was working with children, similar to me. And she worked as an apprentice, second grade teacher. And then after she had that experience, she went on to Tufts University, where she got her dentistry degree. And then she kind of circled back around and came to Stamford, Connecticut, where she has some roots here. So we're happy to have her. We're excited to hear what she has to share with us. And so please help me welcome Dr. Blaire Spaulding. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Mo. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank
Good,
you.
good. So on this Wellness Wednesday, we want to talk about, of course, we want to talk about you. So first, I'm going to ask you just to give a brief introduction, elaborate a little bit more than the intro I gave, and let us have an inside peek of who Dr. Blair is.
Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Blaire Spaulding. I'm originally from Stamford, Connecticut. I traveled kind of up and down the East Coast after graduating high school. I went to Spelman College for undergrad. I did come back to Connecticut for a brief time to teach, which was a good experience. I learned a lot about myself doing that, and that teaching wasn't quite my gift. But I loved working with kids. So I had already known I wanted to go into dental school, but taking that time to just explore other passions was really great. So once I started dental school up in Boston at Tufts, I was just able to kind of hone in on what I really knew I wanted to make my career doing and how I wanted to spend my time, really just helping people overall with their oral health and then overall health.
Mhm.
Um, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a little bit after graduating
Okay.
and kind of made my way back up this way, making a pit stop in Maryland, which was nice. I love DC, love that area. I have family there. So that was a really nice time to reconnect and kind of really dive into practicing full time.
Mhm.
And then during the pandemic, I did come back home for a short time, what was supposed to be a short time. But I found a really great opportunity, a great work family, and I just really love where I am. I recently purchased a home here, so
All
I'm
right.
back here for the thank you for the
Shout out to home
foreseeable
ownership.
future. Really just growing in dentistry, growing personally, um, and doing more of what I love.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So tell me, was there a person or what exactly inspired you to go into dentistry?
Um, I would say there were a couple of people.
Mhm.
First being a really, really close friend of mine. Her dad has a practice in Stanford.
Okay.
And I grew up kind of shadowing him in his office.
Hmm.
He let me spend summers, winter breaks. I actually started off cleaning the office
Okay.
and then worked my way up to actually helping him out. And this was like in middle school.
Okay.
So I kind of got introduced to the field early on.
Okay.
And then my close cousin, she's a bit older than me, so she graduated college a little bit earlier than I did,
Okay.
and she went to dental school.
Hmm.
And growing up, I just always admired her. She's like that person that I wanted to be. So seeing what she was doing, kind of just getting a sense of her lifestyle and the type of person that she is. She's independent. She's built her own business. I'm like, I can do this. I want to do that. So being exposed to dentistry, I learned, not only is that possible, but there were a couple of times working in the office that I had actual interactions of my own with some of the patients that were like very intimate, very close. Like this is as close as we can get to somebody.
Absolutely.
And they're coming in, maybe they're having a problem. There was one patient that stands out to me even now. Like this was when I was a kid. She had a lot of issues with her smile, with her teeth. And she started like crying to me, and I'm a kid, but I'm like, wow, like I'm trying to offer compassion and like comfort her. And she was getting new dentures, I think at the time. And just the moment she put them in and like that feeling of like relief and smile, like she's like, I haven't been able to do this in years. Like that moment, I still can remember it to this day. And this is like 20 years ago plus maybe. So I knew I wanted to have, that closeness with people. I think I knew I wanted to be in healthcare for a long time, but I wasn't sure what realm. And I learned with dentistry, like you can really like change someone's life in just that 1 hour appointment, maybe. And you build a relationship, you see them consistently. We treat kids from a year old up to like 95 years old plus. So, you really follow somebody through the trajectory of their healthcare journey. And like really having that opportunity, like solidify, this is what I want to do. And it was good learning that at a young age, because then I just did what I had to do. I kind of just like set my sights on that and knew nothing was going to stop me.
Okay. Very, very determined young lady.
Yeah.
That's good. So, watching your cousin, did she ever mentor you directly, or did you kind of watch her from afar and just kind of like, I wish I can be like that?
Oh yeah. So she actually lived in Maryland, grew up in that area. She went to Howard Dental School.
All right.
That was like,
Yeah.
that was like my dream school. I didn't get in. So when it came time to go into dental school, I was like, oh my gosh, my dream might look a little different than hers. But she always, like when I was in college, I would spend the summers with her and actually work with her. Like I said, she did have her own public health company where she contracts with nursing homes and hospitals and like actually provides dental care to patients in those settings. So, not so glamorous as like private practice and all those things, but it's, you're providing care to people who really need it and cannot otherwise almost care for themselves sometimes. So I spent the summers with her. She was teaching me about her business. She was teaching me about dentistry. And, not only getting that closeness with her, she introduced me to her own mentors who like kind of bringing it back full circle. When I moved to DC or the area, I actually worked in one of the offices that I shadowed in during those times. So, she really did open the door for me in a lot of ways. I lived with her for a little while when I was looking for a place. So yeah, no, I definitely credit her with like, once I was practicing and kind of able to be more engrossed in the dental field, like the older I got, she really kind of paved the way.
Okay. So how important would you say mentorship is in any field?
In any field, like that's probably the first step of advice that I offer anybody, especially young people. Like the second you think you want to do something, find somebody in that field that you can just talk to. Like maybe you just have one conversation, and either it builds into a relationship that carries you through your career, or you get more information and see maybe this isn't it, or
That's important.
But if you want to do something, like finding people in the field someone who's willing to teach you, to spend time, to like kind of give back that mentorship and
Mm-hmm.
influence, I think is like the most important thing. Um, I mean, as you probably know yourself, and I think we all get to learn over life, like who you know is a lot of
Oh,
how we get to where
major part of life. Yes,
how we
absolutely.
get to where we are. So
Yes.
mentorship is huge. And I can talk about that for days. Like I've been blessed with great mentors, including my current boss, Dr. McLean.
Okay.
Definitely wouldn't be where I am today without kind of her guidance and introducing me to people that she has met along her journey,
Mm-hmm.
even before moving back home and working with her.
Okay. All right. Oh,
Mhm.
and shout out to Howard University School of Dentistry. I have a good
Oh,
friend who
yes.
graduated from
HBCU
there. Um,
love.
Eugenia Anderson. She's a dental hygienist.
Okay.
Well, she went there. She graduated from there many years
Oh,
ago.
nice.
Shout out to her and HU.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so um, let's go back to just working with children, or
Mhm,
working with people in general. So you
mhm,
kind of mentioned the vulnerabilities that you have an opportunity to experience with them,
mhm.
um, from I guess any patient, whether
Right.
they're a young person or an older person. Um,
Mhm,
so how meaningful is that to you? Like, and let me just preface it by saying this. So when I first went to Howard, I wanted to go I was in the School of Business,
mhm.
and while I was there, I had an opportunity to tutor
Okay.
at a African oriented school called Ujima Shule. I'm not sure if they're still around, but
Mhm,
I would go there after school and tutor these children, and I just fell in love with it, and so I ended up changing my major to elementary education, and
mhm,
that proved to me to be so much more rewarding than I can imagine business would, at least
mhm.
psychologically and in terms of my heart, not financially, of course, but so
That doesn't matter.
yeah, we'll talk about that.
Um, I mean, I feel like we all know that, and anyone who's not a dentist can imagine one of the first things we hear when we meet a new patient is like, "I hate the dentist."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, nice to meet you too." But I think a lot of that just comes from fear and,
Hmm.
like, sometimes past negative experiences or, like, horror stories that you hear from someone else.
Hmm.
Um, but, I try to be as patient and, like, compassionate as possible just
Okay.
to kinda understand where someone else is coming from or where they might be coming from just because, I don't have that same fear because this is what I do.
Right.
But I can understand very easily how and why someone gets to that point. So my goal is to literally shift the mindset.
Hmm.
Um, and really it means a lot to me when like someone comes in that way and they leave smiling or they leave and they say like, "Oh, I'm so glad I found you." Um, you know, and like not to I don't know, toot my own horn, but like I do hear that quite a bit.
Okay.
Like people are thankful that they found our office, found a place that like they're heard and understood. Um, they feel like they're in a gentle environment. So allowing people to have that space of being afraid and being
Hmm.
vulnerable, I think kind of pays in letting them also understand and see how that can be shifted. And people keep coming back, and that and I always remind them, I'm like, remember when you didn't
Hmm.
want to come? And I'm like, look at you now. We've done X, Y, and Z. We've restored your whole mouth, your whole smile, and they're happy. So I think like just creating a safe space
Hmm.
for people to be vulnerable is rewarding. Because we can like we're here to fix that and we're here to help you. So
Right.
yeah.
So I've been to your office, of course, and
Hmm.
you've worked on me, so I know everything that you're saying from personal experience. Um,
Hmm.
what I like about McLean Smiles, your office, is
Hmm.
that one, everybody is so friendly and welcoming. And I
Thank
mean,
you.
from the moment you walk in the door, and I think that's very important because
Mhm.
um, depending on what industry you're in, that first introduction I think means a lot,
Mhm.
And so you guys are very welcoming. And then what else I like is the fact that it's owned by a black female dentist. And
Mhm.
my experience has been that prior to you, um, all my dentists have been white males.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about that a little bit in terms
Mhm.
of the disparity within the health and more specifically the dental arena.
Mhm.
Um, if you can talk about some possible challenges that you feel like you had that were a little greater than you would have had if you were different, um,
Mhm.
and just your experience.
Yeah. Well, first, I will start by saying, like, I have heard that a lot,
Mhm.
where patients will come in and say, "You're the first Black female dentist I've ever met, or ever had."
Mhm.
And, this was coming from when I was working in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
I was hearing that. And, Charlotte's a pretty diverse city, but there's a pretty large, I would say, still predominantly Black, at least in the
Mhm.
areas that I was working.
Mhm.
And for them, like for patients in those settings to say that, like,
Mhm.
is surprising and
Mhm.
sad and shocking. But then it's like, here I am and I've only been practicing a year
Okay.
and you're saying that. Now, 8 years later, I still have some patients coming in for the first time saying that. Um, Now, being in Connecticut, maybe a little bit different. It doesn't shock me as much,
Mhm.
but I still think it's an issue, especially given what we know about disparities in the healthcare system in general, how, minorities, people of color are viewed or treated sometimes in the healthcare setting.
Mhm.
Um, I can understand why people, myself included, feel more comfortable sometimes with a provider that they can relate to in that way.
Right.
So, being that and making sure that we can kind of shift that narrative that, we're few and far between
Mhm.
is something that I'm passionate about. I actually was in a pipeline program transitioning from undergrad to dental school called IDID. It stands for Increasing Diversity in Dentistry.
Oh,
Shout
okay.
out to IDID. Shout out to Dr. Holloway, who is another mentor of mine.
Okay.
She started that program, and it started off as students in the AUC, which Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta, primarily pre-dental students. It allowed us to experience or be introduced to different dental schools. Like we'd have panels where the deans and different members of the faculty would come and speak to us. We did all kinds of preparatory things. She provided us with like tons of study materials, things like
Mhm.
that. And that was years ago. It started off a bit smaller. Now that program has grown like exponentially. I know it's no longer just with the AUC. Students from all over the country are part of the program.
Okay.
And I know at Tufts specifically, Dr. Holloway actually became one of the deans of the school.
Okay.
So, even having someone like her being at school when I was there
Mhm.
is was huge. Like, someone to advocate for us, someone to look out for us, because dental school still is a lot of like
Right.
who's in your corner experience.
Right.
So I will say that by the time I was at Tufts, my class had 200 people,
Mhm.
and we might have had like less than 15 Black students in my
Mhm.
class.
Okay.
Whereas a year or two prior, there was one. Um,
Okay.
so now I know that has changed a lot. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but
Mhm.
I know people have joked like, is Tufts an HBCU now?
Okay.
So, I know it's growing.
Mhm.
And I think it's a great thing because, when you have your patients in school and you're trying to get certain requirements and you're trying to just get through, it
Right.
helps to have people that and look out for you that can kind of push you along the way. We pass down patients to underclassmen. We share cases, and I didn't really feel like I had that connection in older years. It's a bit what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say cliquey, but it kind of is, in terms of you look out for.
Well, any program, I think, is like that.
Yeah.
Like any
So the
collegiate program.
more, like, did I struggle to find cases that my classmates and people who had their fellow, uh, I don't know, community groups that are just much larger in number, are just passing down and, being a legacy student, especially.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of those students. And, dentistry isn't a field that there's been a lot of Black people or minority, minority people of color in ever. So when we think of legacy, you're not seeing a whole lot of Black students being white coded by their parents and grandparents.
Right. You'll probably be the first generation of that.
Yeah, and we had grandparents, cousins, sisters, brothers, parents coding many, many, many students. So, just hopefully one day that will change. And, me being this generation, knowing so many now fellow Black dentists, when it comes time for our children to decide what they want to do, we can be that for them. Having a practice you can walk right into when you're done with school, and it's just here for you. That's a big deal. So, just creating a legacy that in dentistry, where, patients can feel like there's more relatability, more safety, more comfort, and also for future dentists as well. Like, I think it goes both ways. I think there was something else you asked me in relation to that, but I don't
remember either. But so I did formulate another question. So looking at the demographic of your class that you just mentioned, roughly 200 and then maybe 15 or so, would you say that the demographic of Black dentists, practicing dentists, would be that large, or even if that's a large number?
Well, actually, and that was what I was going to say. Actually, right now, the percentage of Black dentists in this country is, I looked it up recently, like almost 4%.
Wow.
Yeah. So not even double digits. And I think that is newer because previously it was like 3% when I looked it up. So I think, it's definitely changing, but 3 or 4% is like negligible when you think of
your class was
the whole country.
out of 200, that was 7%. Your class.
Yeah. So that was a lot. So, that's concerning when you think of how many people need dental care and access to care. And we're probably pretty concentrated in certain cities, So it's something to think about. It's something to kind of pay attention to in terms of like, what really can we do? And I feel like grateful to be a part of a program like the one that I was in with IDID that's like very heavily dedicated to changing that. Doesn't make me a little nervous, the direction of things, of how they're going now with, DEI and all that. Yes. But I think as long as we're speaking up and we're letting people know we're here and, we can kind of overcome that.
Okay. I want to shout out the SOC the Cybras who are at Morehouse College, maybe sci-fi.
Yep.
And I do remember I actually did have one black dentist, Dr. Birmingham in DC.
Hmm.
But I never, until I met you, had a black female dentist in all my years. So that was refreshing. And then so the disparity is even greater because we're talking 4% of just blacks in the industry,
Hmm.
and then women. What would you estimate? 1%
That's funny
or
because
less
I
than
looked it up.
1%?
I tried to look it up and it like
It doesn't have a
didn't
number.
exist. Like
Okay.
the percentage doesn't exist. So, I mean, I can only imagine how much fewer of us there are.
Hmm.
Because I don't think I'd even say it's half.
Right.
Just because traditionally, that's not a field. I will say dentistry, I think is it's a field that I, as a woman, appreciate being in because, when it comes to thinking of like life, personal
Hmm.
life, schooling, how much time you're spending in school,
Yeah.
planning for your future, factoring in, do you want to have children, all of those things, it
Hmm.
does allow for a little bit more freedom, in my opinion, um, just timeline wise, if we're being realistic. So,
Hmm.
the more people know that and sharing that with other young women, the work-life balance of a dentist I think is a little bit better than some
Hmm.
other medical professionals or professions. Not to say you can't have it all,
Right.
because if you want it you can have it, but
Hmm.
I think like realistically people get deterred sometimes about certain things because they look at, oh, I have to be in school all this time and I don't have time to do anything else.
Right.
It does allow for, you can make your own schedule. Dentistry, thankfully, isn't typically life or death. So you can be more flexible in your day-to-day schedule. Yeah. So, and still live a nice lifestyle.
Okay. So now here's your chance to mentor some people who might be watching, some young
Mhm.
ladies who are watching. Um,
Okay.
so your path was, I don't know how unique it was, but you went to undergrad and
Mm-hmm.
then you took a break
Mm-hmm.
and you tried something different. I don't want to say different because you weren't in dentistry school, but you already knew you wanted to be a dentist. So you kind
Mm-hmm.
of tried something and then went in. So you took a gap couple of years, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so what kind of recommendation would you give um, to young aspiring um, medical professionals?
Mm-hmm.
Which, in your experience, is there a right way, a best way, or you know?
Well, I can say there's a best way. I think your way is always going to be the right way.
Right.
But for me personally, my path was just slightly non-traditional, I would say. But it wasn't like because I just wanted to try something else. It was more so when I graduated undergrad, I didn't feel that I was a good candidate. Like I didn't have quite the highest GPA.
Mhm.
So when it came time to applying for dental school, I just didn't think I could, uh, I didn't think I was a good candidate. And so I didn't apply. I just said, I'm going to take time, I'll study more, because there is a standardized test you have to take as well. And that was very challenging for me as well. My score on that wasn't great. Um, so I figured I would spend time studying more,
Okay.
try to improve my score on the test. And in the meantime, I kind of got the opportunity to have this teaching job. And I knew I loved working with kids. And I thought maybe I'd be a pediatric dentist. So
Okay.
I'm like, this could be a time that I just explore that, working with children. So when I was graduating, I hadn't applied for the following year to dental school. And then I met with one of the deans from Tufts. And he asked me why I didn't apply. And I was like, well, I just don't think I can get in. Like I don't
So
think
had
I'm
you
a
taken the
good enough.
idea program already?
I was in it,
Okay.
but I kind of came into it late. It was really early on in the program. So I wasn't even really part of the program in the way that by the time I was at Tufts, it was a different kind of story. But still, that's the reason why I got a chance to even meet with the dean at Tufts, who he looked at my resume, he looked at my transcripts, and he was like, I don't see any issue here. Like, I don't see why you are telling yourself no. Like, let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. And like that stuck with me
Okay.
all this time because I did tell myself no. And so by the time I was applying to dental school the following year, um, you know, was I still a great candidate? Not quite, but I got into Tufts and that's where I went. And I did really well there. For the first time, I felt like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I was even more committed to like my studies than I had ever been. So, I made the dean's list, like my GPA was higher than it's ever been. And I think, I should have applied myself better in undergrad, I think. Not that it was terrible, but I just didn't take my studies as seriously as I realized I needed to be in dental school and make it through. So, my advice kind of going back to that for anyone young is, of course, take your studies seriously, especially if this is, the journey and the path through school to dentistry is hard. We're studying hard things. There's a lot involved, but it's doable. And you just try as hard as you can. You put your best into it. And what you get out of it, you get out of it. But don't let yourself kind of be the door, don't close it on yourself, because you just never know. And, hearing no isn't no. Sometimes it's a not yet. Sometimes it's a not right now. So there's always a chance to like come back. I mean, I have friends who not only had they applied to dental school a couple of times, maybe it's not that year, maybe it's, stick with your dream. But I mean, literally, I say this a lot. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I can't stress enough, like, be serious about it, but also just be open to your journey's going to be what your journey's going to be. It's not going to look like anybody else's, but don't tell yourself no.
Okay.
You gotta kind of just go for it.
I'm gonna put a plug in that in terms of mindset because I hear a lot of mindset stuff, and I definitely want to talk about that.
Okay.
But I wanted to just go back. So, could you describe briefly what's the path that somebody would take who was interested in becoming a dentist? Like, how long you have to go to school, and what do you have to do?
So, say you finish high school and you decide, then I think I want to be a dentist. You'd go to college, undergrad, and I'd recommend trying to major in something that is, relevant to the sciences. Just because it's a little bit easier, you'll be on track with every class that you need to take. You don't have to. I had friends that are psych majors, or, my sister's a medical doctor. She was an Africana studies major. You don't have to do that, but it does help, I think, to make sure that you're getting all the prerequisites that you need to get, because there are required classes for dental school entry that you need to take. And So just to kind of be on track with those things, it helps to major in like the sciences, which I was a biology major. And I did do that, took all the classes I needed to. And then from there, if you were to go directly into dental school, you would apply typically your, like going into your senior year. You take the DAT, which is a dental admissions test. Again, ideally, you're prepared for that either summer before, you're taking classes or using study materials. You take that, you apply, and then by your senior year, you're deciding where you're going. And then dental school itself is 4 years. If you want to be a general dentist, like myself, you can do a residency program, which typically those are a year long.
After the 4 years.
After the 4 years, yeah, there would be one more year, but you also don't have to. I didn't do a residency. I felt that Tufts prepared us very well for clinical experiences. Like we were very fortunate to have access to and be exposed to a lot of different clinical things.
Did y'all work on students at Tufts?
What'd you say?
Did y'all work on students?
We worked on students. We worked on patients. Tufts is a huge school. So we actually have like multiple clinics within the school. I think 3 full floors of clinical area. So we're seeing patients starting in your junior year. Your last 2 years are pretty much seeing patients most of the time. So yes, on each other, but also on actual patients. And you're overseen very closely by the faculty who are super experienced and, pretty well-regarded dentists in the area. So you can do a residency or you can just go right into practice, which is what I did. But if you want to specialize, which there are, off the top of my head, I don't know how many specialties there are, but that will determine after graduating dental school how much more time you'll be in school. So they can be 2 years, 3, some oral surgery I think is 6. So yeah, that timeline is really a choice of your own. If you know you want to specialize, then you do that. Otherwise, it's, I would say, minimum 8 years after high school.
Okay. All right. So going back to the mindset. So I'm hearing that your mindset changed and shifted over the years. And so how important is having a positive and more proactive mindset? And how would you recommend that somebody is able to build their mindset up, like prepare themselves mentally?
Well, sorry, can you repeat the first part of your question?
So how important is mindset and just in your preparation for dentistry?
Oh, yes. So I think it's really important because it's hard. What we're doing in healthcare is hard every day. From studying to become a dentist or whatever, part of healthcare that you choose to be in, It's tough. So, staying positive, trying not to get discouraged by, maybe you had a tough exam, maybe you missed out on something fun that you wanted to do because you had to study. It's easy to really get kind of swallowed up in that, but kind of remembering the finish line, remembering the goal helps to kind of keep you uplifted. For me, I went to Boston for school and I didn't know anybody, so I was going there. I'm like, I'm here for one reason.
Is that why you chose there, or only because you were kind of steered to Tufts by me?
Yeah, it wasn't by choice per se, but because I still, my dream was to go to Howard. I wanted to be in DC. But I realized that, God put me where I was supposed to be because not knowing anyone, going there with no kind of preconceived notions about my experience. I just studied. Like, I put my all into school.
Okay.
I still made friends. Have amazing friends from Tufts that I'm still super close with today.
Okay.
Friends from the Boston area that I'm still very close with today. But they knew too, why I'm here. I'd be studying, and then I meet them later. I'll see you
Right.
guys on the weekend. So, keeping that at the forefront of, this is why I'm here. Had I gone to DC, I would have family, I'd have friends. I just think I would be
Could have been a
very
distraction.
distracted.
Yeah.
So I will always feel like I was exactly where I should have been. So, again, keeping the goal at the forefront is a lot of what helps, like, get through tough times, or when you're on those up and down moments. You just got to remember why you're here, but also not keeping to yourself. So in terms of what's the best way to kind of stay positive or get back to positivity when you're struggling with it, talking to people, whether it's sharing with your classmates who are going through the same exact thing as you, or talking to mentors so that they can remind you, look, I did this, I'm here now, you will get through this. So not keeping to yourself also, I think, is a really important, critical part of maintaining a positive mindset, because you aren't the only one who might be going through something. You're not the first person that's done it. So, everybody can have a story that might get you to the next day or the next project or the next test.
So how are you able to shift your mindset? Believing that you can't do it, or
I think
you can't get
just
in.
doing it, like, I think once I just being in it, I went in, I told myself this is going to be the hardest thing I've done.
Okay.
So I went in with that in mind. So as I'm going through it, I'm like, okay, this is hard, but I'm doing it, and each day, literally, each month, each test block, each thing. And, we would get our averages, I think, when we got exams back. You would get like I think you would see the average and the scores and all that, and like being in the higher part of the class, not highest, of course, but I did set a goal for myself. I wanted to be in the top 10%,
Okay.
which absolutely I was not. But I just told myself, like, I'm going to strive for that every test. I'm going to study, like, I'm going to get the highest grade in the class. And even when I didn't, I just knew, okay, that might have been impossible, but I still did well. I still put my all into it. And now on to the next thing.
Okay.
So when I was done and I am here now, I'm like, I did it, and I did it well. So, that's kind of a reminder of, I guess, in new hard situations, or just going about life, realizing you've done hard things.
Right.
We all will go through hard things. But I've made it out, and I'm doing what I love. And there's, that's kind of the gift, the reward at the
Right.
end of it.
So that kind of your experience in school kind of informed how you operate now as an adult.
I would
In
say
life.
in a lot of ways, yeah.
Okay.
And I will say my mom reminds me of that too. Like,
Okay.
sometimes I'll be down, she'll remind me of, she'll say, you've been through hard things, you've done hard things. And sometimes I'm like, what? But then I'm like, yes, actually I have. I've overcome challenges, and I think I've been successful so far. chugging along at life goals.
Right. So I'm going to try to recap. I'm hearing your mindset tip would be essentially to jump in both feet, um, set goals, work as hard as you can, continue to work at it,
Mhm.
and then just continue to push forward regardless of what the results are. Keep going for that goal, right? And having people
Yeah.
around you who's going to also encourage you.
Yeah, but also enjoy it. Like, learn to enjoy the process. Like,
Mm, that's good.
dental school was hard, but I loved it.
Hmm.
I loved doing what I knew I was kind of meant to do. So, it was hard, but it was kind of a good hard, like a good tough, because you can't just spend 4 years being miserable.
Right.
Um, and that I think that's with anything, whether it's with work now. I
Hmm.
love my job, I love my office, I love my patients. Some days I'm like, oh man, that was a hard day. But at the same time, I still love what I do. Like, I know that I love what I do. I know that the next day I just kind of reset and yeah, kind of keep
Okay.
keep going.
All right. And shout out to your mom and your dad. So you had
Yeah.
two um, very strong individuals in your household, and um, one being an educator, and then one being a firefighter, and then
Mhm.
a fire marshal after that. So,
Mhm.
um, how how do you think they've impacted your life choices?
Oh, enormously. um, I think, growing up, they, like you said, they have been such strong figures and like role models in a lot of ways, of course, personally, but just in giving back to the community.
Hmm.
I being here working in Stanford now, especially, like I can't count how many patients come in and they're like, "Oh, I know your mom. I know your dad. They're wonderful." I'm like, having that, and these are people that I don't even know.
Right.
And so them having that impact on who are to me strangers and
Right.
people of all ages, they have made their life commitment
Hmm.
to just their community, of course, to me and my sisters,
Right.
but to our community as well. And I think that it's reflected in my sisters and I always kind of say, like, us being in healthcare, all of
Hmm.
us, is probably no accident. We grew up in a household where our parents did emphasize the importance of giving back and helping people, taking care of you know people in a way that's compassionate and also prioritizing school and studies. So you
Sure.
know do, working hard in school kind of also helped get us where we are, but mainly, beyond that, it's just about being good people and trying to leave a mark on the community in the way that they have. So, like, they're very influential people.
Okay. Does um does it put a little pressure on you if somebody comes and they say, "Oh, I know your mom or your dad," like, "Oh, I can't mess up this person." Not that you're going to,
Uh,
but
I
like, do you
mean,
ever feel
I
any
will
way?
say I think so. Yeah, I mean, I've had maybe one or two patients come in and say, "Don't mess up, I know your dad." I'm like, "Well, I wasn't planning on it, but
Right.
now that you mention it." But I think being here, yes, in my hometown, working on people that I do know or have known
Mhm.
me since I was born, basically,
Right.
it is a lot of pressure because, you want to obviously do well or have them feel comfortable, have them be impressed in a way like that you are good at what you do.
Mhm. So, are you your parents' dentist?
No.
You're not? Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yes, I am.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I am their dentist.
Yes. Okay.
That took a little while. My dad first, like one of my first patients, he came
Okay.
to Tufts. He has been
Well, daddy's
rocking.
girls. I mean, come on.
Yeah, my mom, she took a little longer to come around, but now she comes in and, it really it's humbling, but it's also like it feels really good to be trusted by
Mhm.
people that, have known you since you're a little kid and running around and
And
doing whatever.
they've served you all your life, and now you're serving them,
Yeah.
essentially taking
Yep,
care of
for
them,
them.
in a
Mhm.
little way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's great. That's great. So we're gonna take a quick break, and what we're gonna do during our break is we have this thing called mindful minute. Okay, it's
okay.
only 1 minute or a little bit over, but I'm gonna spitfire some questions to you,
Okay.
and I want you to just think on your feet, whatever comes to mind first, answer, and
Okay.
it's gonna really just be revealing a little bit more about you. Okay,
Okay.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Um, I'll start easy. Um, Favorite musical artist?
Oh, Beyonce.
Uh, Flying, cruises, or an island vacation?
Island vacation for sure.
Okay. International or local?
International.
All right. Favorite food?
Uh, Asian food, like the whole continent.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, the best quote or advice that you've ever received?
Oh, ooh, the best quote. I would say give people grace. That's I don't know if that's like a quote, but my mom says it a lot and reminds us of that a lot. So
Okay.
yeah.
Um, Celebrity crush?
Oh. At the moment, celebrity crush. Oh, Morris Chestnut, probably.
Okay. Your dream vacation, like location?
I'd say, I think the Maldives
Okay. Hot tub, beach, or pool?
beach, like a nice one.
Okay. Like where?
Like crystal clear waters in the Caribbean.
Okay. And then your greatest challenge that you've had growing up?
Math.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
that gave us an inside peek. So that's it. You're off the hook now.
Okay.
So we have a couple more questions and then we're going to conclude. Um, so, how do you balance maintaining your professionalism while staying authentic to who you are?
um, I think just being myself, like, not being afraid, not trying to put on a show or anything like when I'm at work, for
Mhm.
example. I guess is that what you mean in like a work setting or
Um, well, I guess more like a work-life balance type question. Like, how do
mm.
you balance
Mhm.
that, but then still staying true to um, what you like to do? Like some people only go to work, go home, go to work, and that
Mm.
that is
Okay.
their life. But
Mhm.
that's not who most people are. Who they are
Yeah.
is are their other experiences. So
Oh,
how
yeah.
how do
Well,
you, if you, or do you even balance that? Like,
yeah, I think I do. Of course, working. I do work a lot. I would say I think my sisters are always like, Blaire, you can take a day off. Like you can, which I do take vacation sometimes, but I, feel bad when I don't go to work because if I'm not there, what's happening? If there's no one to cover me, where office is closed or stuff like that. So that's hard to reconcile with. But when I'm not
well,
at work,
let me pause you for a second. So
mhm.
you told me earlier that most of your cases are not life and death. So it is
Well,
okay.
that's true.
It is okay to take off. They're gonna be all right.
That's
They
true.
come a week later.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I did say that, and that is
Mhm.
true. I just have to, we got to tell that to Dr. McLean.
Okay.
But she is also great about making sure that we get a good work-life balance, that we're taking care of ourselves. So I can't even really complain about that at all. But, when I'm not at work, spending time with my friends, I try to make a point to, this year, my goal was to be traveling a little bit more to see friends that live, other places. Some of my friends are having kids, spend time with them, visiting, spend more time with my family. I like to eat, so I like to go out to eat a lot. Making sure that I'm trying out new restaurants. Yes, taking vacations. I recently started, I like working out. So, that's a big part of also my personal life, is trying to stay active and take care of myself in that way. So I recently started doing Pilates over the last few months, and that's been my kind of outlet of exercise, which is nice because it's calming, but it's also a pretty good workout.
Right.
So I do, I take advantage of the time that I'm not at work.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So let me go right back to mindset real quick, because this is the Mo Mindful Show. So there are several different types of mindset that people typically characterize themselves as, or they don't know. But I'll mention several, and I want to know what you think you are in terms of so an abundance versus a scarcity mindset. Which one would you say you are?
I would say abundance.
Abundance. All right. Open versus closed.
Open.
All right. Growth versus what's the other one? Fixed. I don't know why I can't.
I would say maybe I'm somewhere in the middle of that.
Okay. And in terms of how you treat yourself, would you say you have a compassionate mindset or a conflicting one?
Closer to compassionate.
Okay.
Be more compassionate about myself.
Yeah, so you forgive yourself and say, okay, it's all right. Or
Yeah.
okay.
I'm working on that.
All right. And then my last question is, what parting words would you say? No, I have two more questions. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So that's going to be my last question. So just coming back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So of course that's all the news right now. What are your thoughts in terms of that whole idea of what the president and the Congress is doing right now in terms of ending DEI? Is that good? Is it bad? Do you think what they say has any truth to it? Or what are your words about DEI?
Well, I think it's concerning that the definition is, and the goal of it is getting lost, or the true goal is getting lost.
Right.
Because I think, for one thing, let's be real, race is, I think, the biggest thing that's being attacked, I would say, as if, that's the only thing, the only way to be diverse is with race. So I think people forget that, diversity, equity, and inclusion is in everything and in any way that we are different. So, whether it's being a woman, being an able-bodied person, or a disabled body person physically, anybody with any, neurodiversity in any way, any type of something you can see or not see about somebody that makes them different, learning disabilities, all those things fall under that umbrella. So like you think of kids in school, you're talking about taking away, resources for kids to actually function in school like other kids.
Right.
Not everybody is the same. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks the same. Not everybody's brain works the same.
Right.
And I think it's a huge disservice to kids getting this message because I think it starts in school with a good friend of mine is a children's book author, and she wrote a book on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's called Intersection Allies. Excellent, excellent book. But it's currently cited in a Supreme
Books.
Court case right now.
Wow.
And it's a children's book on acceptance and families and, just learning about different types of family. And like to try to, I don't know, ban that, shut those thoughts and ideas down. I mean, what type of world are we trying to create? Because if you're doing this with kids, it's so that they grow and you're developing their mindset in a way that's closed off. And it's, they just won't know. Or they'll grow up, feeling like what they feel and believe and think is wrong. So, I think it's dangerous. I think it's unfortunate, mainly for kids, but of course, for everyone as adults. It's gonna make day-to-day life much harder in a way that I think people are not really addressing by just focusing on the race piece.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. I can say some things, but I don't want to get you in trouble. So I'll do a whole episode with me just talking about that.
Okay. Well, I'll tune in.
So your parting words, I guess, so what would you want to leave our audience with? Like what would be the most salient point you would want to leave them with regarding anything that we talked about or even anything that we haven't?
I think the most important thing just is, once you decide who you want to be or who you think you want to be, just go for it, just throw your all into it, because all you can do is learn from that, whether you pivot or whether you veer off the path here and there, you have goals, you have influences. You look at people who are doing the things you want to do, who, are living a life that you admire in a positive way, hopefully. Just go for it. You can't really let your own, like we've said so many times, your own mindset hold you back. And I think that's something that I've learned a lot over the years. I've overcome, whether it's teachers telling me I can't do something, and thankfully having a very advocating mother who made sure that what these teachers were saying, you don't get the final say. So, keeping that in mind, trying to be that for other people. Once you do open the door, make sure you hold it open, or get through the door, hold it open for the people behind you. And just try to, leave a path of positivity and, inspiration, I would say.
Awesome. And then, so how can somebody reach you? How can somebody get in touch with you if they're looking for a dentist? Where can they find you? Social media,
Well,
anything like that?
yes, I do have a dental social media that I am building. So that's Dr. Blaire on Instagram. So at Dr. Dr. _ Blaire, BLAIREYY. And come see me at McLean Smiles in Stanford and in Bridgeport.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Blaire. I appreciate you. And
Thank
so,
you.
am I saying it wrong? Is it Blaire or Blaire?
It's Blaire. It's
Huh?
Blaire.
Okay.
It's Blaire.
But you just emphasize that so people know it's an E at the end. Okay.
Yes.
Right. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. All right.
Yes.
So again,
You are. Thank you
very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, you shared a lot of great points with our audience, and hopefully you have inspired somebody, maybe some little girl watching, or even a woman. I work with adults who are retransitioning into new areas in their lives. So, I'll make sure they watch this as well. So again, I thank you.
Thank you so much.
Happy International Women's Month.
Oh, yes.
So we celebrate you.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to close out. This is the Mo Mindful Show, and we'll catch you next Wednesday for another Wellness Wednesday episode. Thank you.
Thank you.